Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello, folks, and welcome to the show. My name is indeed Avrum Rosensweig, and I'm delighted to be here with you. Thank you so much for joining us. I've always been a little bit frightened of poetry, I think, as a lot of people have. And perhaps the reason for that is because poetry, I think, at its core is the efficiency of words. And it's not easy to arrive at a poetic statement or a stanza, or an entire poem. By definition, it's a very, very challenging piece, I think, within any language or with any culture. My sister, God bless her soul, was a poet. Her daughter is a poet, and indeed just had a book published on poetry, which we're all very excited about. And today, I have a poet with me as my guest, my very first poet as a guest, and his name is Ronald Lieber. How are you, Ronald?
I'm well. I'm very well. And you?
I'm doing very well. Do you want to tell us where you are first, so we'll get that out of the way?
Get this out of the way. I'm up this weekend at my partner's cabin. It's it's in the woods of Pennsylvania. It's very rustic, and being rustic and being in the woods, there's no cell service. And she does not want Wi-Fi. She likes coming up here and just tuning out, so to speak, or letting loose from the world. So I'm at a local elementary school, the Damascus School in Milanville. I think it's Milanville. And I'm in the lawn of the elementary school because there's Wi-Fi. There's a cell service here.
These are quirky moments in life, aren't they?
Yeah. They
really are. All right. I want to tell my listeners and my viewers a little bit about you. Ronald Lieber is an award-winning poet. His debut poetry book is The Long Journey Out. Ronald was born in Japan and raised between the strong cultural framework of his Japanese mother and his Jewish American father. He lived in 14 different places by the time he was 14 years old. He served as a Peace Corps volunteer in Costa Rica before settling in New York City, where he is now a retired professor of English from SUNY Nassau. Ronald is a licensed psychoanalyst in private practice. He recently completed a plant medicine guide training program at the Center for Medicine Work in Philadelphia. The poetry book we're speaking about today is called From Many Poems, written by Ronald over his 70 years of life. Kirkus Review said about Ronald and his poetry, Lieber uses details both small and infinite to explore the mind in this poetry collection, a penetrating, measured group of poems exploring wonder, emotion, and the way the world moves us. Did you ever think that you would be a poet?
Oh, no. No. Growing up, I was just a regular kid.
Yeah.
And being in the military and on military bases, I got to live in some places of nature. And I just loved being in the woods. I just played in the woods, and on an army base, it was very safe. So, we were never home.
Yes.
At any age, we just gathered, played, and that's all I liked to do was play
Right.
and hang out. What got me into poetry was that I was in college, okay? I didn't know what to do, okay? I was in college because I was told you were going to go to college. That was the only instruction my parents gave me. You're going to college, because neither of my parents, well, my mother graduated high school, but she was a woman in Japan, so there wasn't much for her other than getting married. And my father grew up poor Jewish in Brooklyn, New York, and he quit high school in the 8th or 9th grade because his father left the family and he had to work to help support the family.
Mm.
So because of that, I think they've valued education and they insisted that their kids be educated. But beyond that, they didn't say like be a doctor, be a plumber, be this, be that. No, just you're going to college. So it was either in my first or second year of college, I was doing LSD. Okay,
Yes.
this is during the 60s.
Great drug. Yes.
Oh, okay. And I'm going to just say I had an experience. I don't want to get too far into it because it's kind of sacred and private to me.
Yes.
But in hindsight, that experience launched me. I'm convinced, okay, this is a story I tell, launched me into my life.
Mhm.
Because up until then, I have been using the word wayward. I didn't have any direction per se. Okay. So I had an experience, and then I'm sitting in a English class, second semester. It might have been British poetry. I don't even know. And I'm in the back of the class, and the professor's reading a poem, a Wordsworth poem. I don't know if you know poetry, Lines at Tintern Abbey.
Yes.
And he reads this part, and I sort of wake up, like the words spoke to me because it was something that spoke to the experience I had, and yeah, it reverberated. And I think a good part of my life, I've been looking for affirmation and confirmation of that experience in literature, poetry, philosophy, Eastern practices, wherever, looking, looking for
Yes.
what, I think it's sent me into psychoanalysis. And currently my interest in medicine work.
I have a friend who claims that his life changed dramatically after taking a very, very strong drug like LSD.
Right.
And he said that one time sent, as you said, sort of sent him into a different stratosphere, but one where he sort of had a better understanding of who he was and what life was all about. And while some people, I think, will argue that, well, one hit, how can that possibly cause such a metamorphosis? It indeed, I think it has for many people.
Oh, it certainly has.
Right?
You scan the literature, it can, and it's not something you have to do over and over and over. This is in
Right.
medicine practice. As someone said, I forget who, if you pick up the phone and you get an answer, you don't have to call again. So something like that. So,
Yeah.
if something happens, that's it. And something did happen. And it's not something I sought, it feels like it happened to me. And once it happened, I could not turn my back on it. It was too much of a, I don't want to say rupture because that sounds a little negative. It was really life change. Well, that sounds cliched too. Changing. It just altered me.
Yeah, like a metamorphosis, right?
Yeah, a
You didn't become
transformation.
a
Yeah,
transformation. I know. I totally get that. I went through some sort of like emotional break when I was around 21 or 22. I was
yeah,
extraordinarily lost, and I was actually smoking pot one night, and it was a very heavy dose of pot. And I think
yeah.
pot can cause some psychosis,
Oh,
and
yeah.
right, and in my case, it did. And it was a terrible night, and it was terrible months after that. But then things started to change in a most positive way for me.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. I know people who work medicine with cannabis,
Right.
because it's so strong now. And if you do it with intention, you do any of these medicines with intention, that's what changes everything. You go into it with intention, and that changes the effect of the medicine on you. You're not out there trying to party and have fun and rock and
Right.
roll or
Right.
do any of that. It's all inward. It's all, like people generally wear eye masks so that the journey is inward, and then you let the medicine do its work, and surprising things can appear before you.
So, would you say, let's say definitively, would you say you have a very good relationship and understanding with yourself?
Well, whoa, what a question.
Yeah.
What a question. You know, I'm a psychoanalyst, right? I've been trained. I started training. When did I start? Damn. Maybe in the 90s. Yeah, in the 90s. I started training, and I've been in practice for 20 years or more. I'm trying to know myself, right? That's the intention. But I don't think one can know oneself. That's hubris. That I know myself well enough that there's nothing left. There's always a blind spot.
Yes.
Okay. There's always something you don't know about yourself. I think it's more about the process. That cliche. It's not where you go, it's the process of getting there. And so I
It's the
think
journey.
it's the journey. And that's what the long journey out is, ostensibly about. It's the journey. I can't tell you where it's going or what it produces, but or its results. It's just the fact you're on it.
But so to know yourself, is it necessarily to like yourself?
Oh, but you're fantastic, man. I love these
Thank
questions. Uh,
thank you. Thank you.
do I think a lot of people begin not liking themselves,
Mhm.
and ideally that changes. I mean, in my practice, I can see a lot of people there who are suffering, and a lot of the suffering is because they attack themselves. They don't like themselves. There's just a self-loathing. And I think part of the work there, okay, I'm going to get a little metaphorical here because
Yes.
it's about energy, and turning the energy away from attacking the mind, you know, to using it constructively to move you forward in the world. A lot of people use it as this energy gets bound in self-attack. And I want to free it from that, and so that it's available for worldly activities.
Over the years, as you've studied, as you've trained, as you've been a therapist, um, did you start to understand the sort of the generational components of that attack on ourselves? And let me be more specific. Your father's father left their family, right?
Right.
Right. By the way, when you told me that, it just broke my heart. Like, I can only imagine your father as a young man and his father leaves.
Right.
Do you think your grandfather leaving that family had ultimately an effect on you?
Wow. Man, I'm loving you. Uh,
I'm loving
these
you
are
too, Ronald.
fantastic questions, man.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
was
Thank
just
you.
reading something, about genetics, and in many ways, what do you call it? Neuroscientists, genetics. There's this branch now called epigenetics, and they're
Yes.
beginning to see how genes can respond to environmental pressures and change. So on that level of biology and of materialism, genes can change. Your DNA is not locked, as we used to think. I grew up thinking that, right? But on another level, when people who study family constellations, they somehow see, they can't explain the mechanism by which this happens, but families pass on trauma from one generation to the next, and it lives intergenerationally. So yes, because it affected my father, and it probably affected the way he raised me, and the way he raised me, uh, it affects the way I'm raising my children, my son. So
How did he raise you, your dad?
very, very critically.
He did he? He was critical
Yeah.
of you?
Oh my God. The joke about my father, he's no, never, can't, won't.
No, never.
So
Can't,
it was
won't.
always it was always no. And he wasn't parented himself.
Yes.
He didn't have any role models to teach him how to be a parent. And I don't think generations before that was a concern to parents. I think only in the 80s and 90s have we become aware of how to raise children in a way that allows their development as unimpeded as possible.
Did you raise your children well, do you think?
Well, I'd like to think so, but only time will tell. I have a daughter who's if she hears this, because I don't know her exact age, but she's like 38, who has turned out rather successful by societal ideas,
Yes.
And I think when I'm with her, I think she's a wonderful human being.
Is she? She is, eh?
She's fun. I like her. We don't share the same values, that's for sure. She thinks it's like her mother and I are poets, and her mother's also a musician. She has not one literary artistic bent in her body, but she's still a great person, and she's done well for herself.
Wait, what does she have? If she doesn't have poetry, what does she have?
Well, right now she has her 2 children, and she enjoys life.
She enjoys life.
She tries to enjoy life.
Yes.
What else?
So let me ask you, this is the first time that you and I met, and you seem like, at first blush, you seem like a very joyful fellow. Joyful and disheveled.
I am disheveled.
I am too.
Disorganized. I mean, I came up here, I forgot to bring my charger to the computer, and I was freaking out. I hope I charged it,
So I many years ago, I had a teacher, I think it was Mr. Glenn in grade 3. He said to me, Avrum, do you know what disheveled means? I go, I don't. And he goes, well, you'll find out because you're disheveled. This is what he told me. And so years and years later, I started a movement called dishevelism, and I was the president of it. No members, just me. But I always felt disheveled in my art, in the way that domestically and so on. But I'll be honest with you, Ronald, I don't mind being disheveled. I'm okay with it.
I have this philosophy that I've been trying to live by. We like to think, I hear people talk, that I am in charge. I want to control. I. Well, being a psychoanalyst, and this is the foundation of my value system, I subscribe to the concept of an unconscious, a non-conscious mind, right? That is part of me that has been shaped. This is going to get kooky here, by millions and millions and millions of years of evolution, right? Or from the very simple one-cell organisms who have managed to survive because in some way they read their environment, and in reading the environment, only those who survive get to reproduce. This is Darwinism, And so this is built up over millions of years of developing complexity, right, from a single celled organism to humans with this brain of ours, right? But I like to think that that there's not my non-conscious mind, the part of my mind I'm not aware of, right, is getting sensory information and picking up information through the senses from the world and is processing it. But I don't need to participate in that processing. And this goes to the disheveledness, because I'm trying to learn to trust my unconscious as if it knew this sounds nutty, the next step before I did. And if I listen to it, it sparkles. Life sometimes sparkles that way. I don't know how to describe it. Doors open up that I didn't plan to open up, but there they are. You know, that
Yes.
concept of I don't know, ask and ye shall receive, I think is operating on a non-conscious level. I don't know how to explain
I
it.
know. I understand. I know what you're saying is,
You do? Great.
yeah, slowly but surely you're allowing your unconscious to work, but you're also getting to know it, and you're relying upon it, and you're trusting it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not no pure Freud, the unconscious is a cauldron of wild, irrational
Right.
passion.
Right.
That is part of it, but it's not all of it. Like you read Jung and other analysts, and they see the unconscious as an ally,
Mm-hmm.
and you read fairy tales. Fairy tales are all about that.
Have you studied at all, or have you gotten into Viktor Frankl's mode of therapy?
No,
Have you read A Man's Search for Meaning?
I've read parts of it, not
Yeah,
all
it's
of it.
worthwhile. Okay, I'm just curious what modalities that you've used and studied over time.
Oh, well, I'm pure Freudian in the sense that people lie on the couch. I use the couch. I'm behind them. They talk. I listen. And there's the assumption that there's an unconscious. That's the basic fundamental principle of psychoanalysis, that there is an unconscious that is motivating behavior. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. I may supply to my mind reasons why I do it, but the reasons are more perhaps primitive and not known to me. And that through talking, that we may get a glimpse of what is motivating my behaviors.
Did you design your office in the Freudian way? I was
Oh,
in Freudian therapy for 5 years, and my therapist was truly Freudian in every way. So if I wouldn't talk, he wouldn't say a word.
well, if you know your patient, sometimes that's may prod them to talk. I've always wondered about that. I've always wondered, like in that situation, do I go in and provide, I'm speaking very broadly now, do I provide a corrective emotional experience? Do I provide an emotional experience that they needed but didn't get, growing up or being an infant? Or do I let them, quote unquote, stew in their juices till their life energy gets the better of them and directs them into the world to say something, you know, for yourself? Like, are you going to say something?
Right.
Why are you so quiet?
Right.
I want you to talk. And that, I like that if that happens.
Oh man, you must be a great therapist.
Well, it depends on who you talk to.
Oh, I don't know. I'd love you to be my dad or something. I don't know.
But I wanted to ask you, when you said, did you go more than once a week?
At that time, I think I was going twice a week. Yeah.
Wow. Because most people, first of all, 4 times a week, who's got the time to do that? And plus, who's got the money?
Yeah,
Okay?
right. That's a big deal. And not only that, uh, I'm a limited sort of well of anything, and I often feel as though I have nothing left to say. Like I've said it all. I'm trying to write a freaking book, and I honestly I have a writers club that I started up. These guys wrote 300 page books. One guy wrote 700 pages. I don't have 700. I don't have 100 pages of anything to say, to be honest. So yeah, so therapy too much is not good for me. I want to ask you another question. Your name is Ronald. How do you say your Japanese?
Okuaki.
Yeah,
Okuaki.
such a fluidity to that. K in the beginning, K in the end. Lieber. So it's
Right.
American, it's Japanese, and it's Jewish.
Yeah.
Who are you within those three, mostly?
If you ask my partner, well, I even admit it, growing up, being somewhat on the outside, I looked a little different than most of the kids. Okay. And when I looked around, I didn't see anyone who looked like me. Rarely did I see that Asian, Caucasian mixture. I think as a survival mechanism, I'm probably, I don't know if this is politically correct to say, but I'm probably value system wise more white than anything else. Because as I said, I'm trying to survive in the environment I find myself in, and I'm moving every year. And I think just being a kid, because I didn't have a group to look to, like if I were African American or if I were Latino, I could have a community. I think this is in my imagination because I didn't live it. I would have a community to whom I could look to whom I could look and identify with. But I didn't have that.
Yes.
So I'm just trying to survive, because, one thing I learned growing up, the older I got, the harder it was to break into groups. The boundaries became more and more rigid the older I got. And yeah, I don't know why I said that. So I want to be, there's a part of me that wants to be accepted.
Yes, I get it.
I want friends.
Do you have friends?
Yeah, growing up, I learned to use my difference to meet people, to break the barrier. It was a conversational starter. What like you? Where are you from? You look different.
Did the girls like you?
I like your question.
Yeah, thanks.
Girls like me. I'd like to think so.
Because you got this interesting thing going on. You have beautiful eyes,
Oh, really?
Yeah, you have beautiful eyes. Doesn't your partner tell you that?
Not about my eyes. That's the first time I've heard
Structure
that.
your face. You're very handsome.
Oh, well, you're very kind to say that.
Are you?
You're not too bad yourself now.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, really.
I started taking metformin for diabetes, and apparently it has an anti-aging component to it. Yeah, so everywhere I go, people say, "Oh, you're looking younger. You should take metformin, even if you don't have diabetes." Is there anything Jewish about you?
Well, as I said, chicken liver salad.
You're very deeply Jewish, I see.
Very, maybe character-wise, nothing comes to mind. I wasn't raised with any direct Jewish education, history.
Nothing like Passover Seder?
Nope. I'm in the military. I didn't even know what Seder was till I left and went to college. There were so many things I didn't know about.
Is there anything Japanese about you?
Well, this gets into family dynamics. This says something. There may be not much Jewish about me because I did not identify with my father. My father was the other. He was on the other side of the canyon. My mother was dear to me. So I identified with things Japanese. It's because when I looked at my face, I saw Japanese features. I didn't see Jewish features, my father's features, which I'm now beginning to see. They're becoming clear to me that how he is a part of me. I mean, he is. We all know he is, but I mean physically. But so that says a lot that I identified with my mother.
Yes, it does. Did
She
you
was
love your dad?
Well, I certainly have dad issues.
Yeah, so do I. Me too.
They're becoming very clear to me, and I'm beginning to see how much I yearned for him, how much I yearned for. I don't know if it was. I can't say it's his approval, but I don't know what it is with sons and fathers. But I yearned. I wanted something from him that I know I didn't get.
You know, my son is 19, Ronald, and I told him in the car yesterday. I said, I wish I could get out from being the cloud that hovers over you. I wish I could sort of move away from that. Like he's individuating. And I want him to be
Yes.
clear that sons are very often under their father's cloud or within their shadow. And that's what I tried to say to him is like, I want you to be you as much as you can possibly be. And
Right.
I don't want to get in the way. Like I find sometimes, Ronald, when he's with me, he can't think clearly because he's thinking about what he wants me to hear. So
Oh, that's yeah.
classic stuff, right?
Right. You know, I was just reading something else about they're talking about false self, true self, and they were implying or insinuating the false self begins. I mean, you do have to consider this. This is real. You know, living in the real material world, you have to consider it. What others think of you.
Yes.
But if you're not connected to yourself, whatever that means to you, one individual being connected, how then do you know what to do? If you have to rely on trying to please others and other people's opinions of what's right for you, you're going to live a very tangled, gnarly, knotted life.
Yes.
Because you won't know what feels right for you because you don't have that connection. And I've seen people like that, and they're just they're suffering
Terribly.
Yeah.
I know I've seen it too. Like the development of the self is key to a somewhat of a happy or a meaningful life.
I think so.
Right. To get to know yourself. So listen, I want to tell you something really interesting.
Sure.
I did a search on AI. I've been using AI quite a bit, and we're going to use it throughout this interview of psychotherapists who were poets. You want to hear this? Have you heard of it? Maybe you've heard of some of these. Mordechai Geldman.
No.
He was Israeli psychologist and psychotherapist who used psychoanalytical methods. He published 18 poetry books.
Whoa.
18 poetry books. Not like you, only one.
Only one. and probably the last one.
Oh, do you think so? Why?
I think this is all I want to publish.
Right. Yet you won an award for it.
Well, I
validation.
It was I was shortlisted for an award, and my poems have won awards. Individual poems have won.
Would you say you're a poet?
Well, I'm of the school, you can only say you're a poet if you're writing a poem. So if that were the case, I'm not a poet right now.
You were a poet?
I was a poet. I may still have the soul of a poet. I would like to think, I'm going to tell you a story someone told me. When I first came to New York, I met this Chinese fellow, elder guy. I don't know if I met him through acupuncture or whatever, but he had fled. He and his family had fled communist China, and he was teaching a class on the I Ching. You know the I Ching, the Book of Changes, yeah.
Yeah.
And he said something that stuck with me because it involved the evolution of a person. And one thing that stuck with me, it wasn't you were one thing and then that's who you always were. Now, I forget the exact progression, so that may be mixed up, but I think it began like first a warrior, then a philosopher, then a poet. But it was something like that. It's a continual growth, an organic growth. So I, like so I can feel good about myself, subscribe to that.
It's a lovely thought. Were you warrior in nature, or are you?
No, but I was a poet. I wrote poetry as the first thing I did. And then I got into psychoanalysis and I devoted, and then what connects the two is that they both spring from the unconscious.
Yeah. Right.
Because in
Right.
my conception of creativity, I'm just the vehicle for this, I don't know what, creative inspiration act that moves through me, but I don't consciously think it. It comes to me and I ride the wave that, and
So I want to touch on that. Just a couple more of a psychoanalysis, a psychotherapist, sorry, who were poems. Arthur Lerner, a psychotherapist and poet. Lerner was appointed poet in residence and poetry therapist at the Calabasas Neuro Psychotherapist Center in California, whatever. David Shattuck, a contemporary psychotherapist and award-winning poet. Ruth Lisa Schechter, a poet and the first official poetry therapist at Odyssey House in New York City. So there's a lot of people out there like you. But here's what I want to read you in light of what you said, that there's a sort of the core of poetry, the core of psychoanalytic teachings. It comes from a similar place. Let me read you this. And again, it's from the AI. Through the lens of psychoanalysis, poetry serves as a profound medium for exploring the unconscious mind, channeling repressed desires, fears, and conflicts into symbolic language. Sigmund Freud viewed artistic creation, including poetry, as a sublimation of instinctual drives, where the poet transforms inner turmoil into socially acceptable forms. The rhythmic patterns and evocative imagery of poetry mirrors the dream work of the psyche, with metaphors and symbols acting as a conduit for latent thoughts, much like free association in therapy. Carl Jung expanded this, suggesting poetry taps into collective archetypes, resonating with universal human experiences. As such, poetry becomes a dialogue between the conscious and unconscious, offering both poet and reader a means to confront and integrate the hidden self. What do you think of that?
Well, I would go even further.
Yeah.
Beyond the individual unconscious to Jung's collective human unconscious, to an unconscious of existence, which borders on the mystical, the spiritual, call it what you want, which is the place from which life springs. I'll take it that far back, and it is the source of all life, and it's the source of all energy. So as it gets into a more human realm, yeah, I mean, I totally subscribe to sublimation, that concept that that's what I was talking about. You want to take the energy and use it for constructive purposes.
Yes.
And that's transformation, because, like aggression, when I'm in the pit of anger, I want to just, hit. Discharge all that energy and get it out. It's very uncomfortable in the body, the energy. It can be. But you can take that energy, and rather than using it destructively, which could land you in jail, or you have a terrible relationship with your spouse, that energy can be, Freud calls it sublimation, but it can be harnessed and used to promote life. And so rather than punching someone, maybe you here's a classic. You what? You go to the gym. Use that energy to make yourself healthier. You could write music. It's an energy. It's a metaphor. Now the energy it can be used. And this I'm repeating myself for constructive purposes or destructive ones.
Have you ever been angry to the extent that you've been violent?
Ooh, you're not kidding. I was a young kid. I grew up in the Redneck South. I was in part a redneck, even though there was a part of me that was self-reflective, and I mean, I grew out of it. But yeah.
Have you been contrite about those times? Have you done tshuva, as we say in Jewish, like being introspective about it, gone back there, worked it through?
I'm working it through right now.
Yeah.
It's something I'm always going to work on, because the world, is a very frustrating and angering place.
It is.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, because I don't want to go off into science or neuroscience, because aggression is innate to being human.
That's the theory, right? It's innate.
Oh, it's not theory. I think in some places it's accepted.
Have you heard of Maimonides?
Maimonides, yeah.
Great Jewish sage. His whole thing is the golden mean. It's finding the center with everything in life, except one thing, except for anger. Right? Anger, you swing that pendulum as far over as you possibly can.
Well, I don't want to behave angrily.
That's what he's saying. Yeah.
I tell my patients, they confuse often the feeling of anger with behaving anger. And so they avoid being angry, and that leads to problems, because I'm a proponent of having all your feelings. They're just feelings. They're like the weather. But the problem is the feelings are in the body, and sometimes it doesn't feel comfortable embody this feeling. It feels anger. If you're in the pit of anger, it's really disturbing. Or lust. Lust will drive you nuts. You want to do something with it. But so where was that? But I try to tell them there's a difference between feeling angry and behaving angry.
Yeah,
and
good
for
one.
some people, that's like, what? I said, you could be angry as hell and, just sit there.
Are you still very lustful at your stage of life?
Oh, I'm reaching a period of quiescence.
Is that a nice period?
Well, to be honest, yes.
Why?
Well, because when I was because again, I'm an embodied person, right? We like to think, that the soul or that awareness is in the mind. My ego is in the mind. Walking down the streets of New York, I'm a straight, as far as I know, straight heterosexual guy. I am constantly bombarded by stimulation, sexual stimulation. The women walking by in the street are just attractive.
I know it.
And it can be, what's the word I'm looking for?
Enslaving.
It can be that, I can mention some street sayings, but
it's too much sometimes. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
That's why I said quiescence. Life has this calm, and it's pleasant, and I like it. I don't want to chase. I don't know how politically correct I should be.
No, don't be.
I don't want to, because I used to be that way. A young guy. I was just chasing women.
Yes. So listen, I have a very dear friend, Dahlia, and she's a designer. She designs homes, and she's very inquisitive and very bright. And I told her that I'd be interviewing a poet. Little did I know you're no longer a poet, but so
Well,
I'm just
I
kidding.
mean, I wrote a poem not too long ago.
Well, there you go. So you're still a poet. So I said, Dahlia, what would you ask a poet? And she gave me some questions, and they're really good questions. Can I ask you them?
Sure.
She says like this. Do you think that we are all poets, but life has repressed our nature?
Oh, wow.
It's a good
So
one.
when
Eh?
you ask me that, what I'm hearing as we all creative?
Okay. All right.
That's what I hear. Create. And it all depends on how. I think you can be creative being a parent, making a child, I think is creative. Anything that partakes of that life energy that makes, I think you're creative making a business. You know, my concept of creativity isn't limited to the arts like it used to be. I think that's a little bit of snobbery.
I agree with you 100%. I think you're
You know,
absolutely right. And when people say, you know, Ronald, some people you'll say to someone, "Oh, do you write poetry or prose?" And the person I'll often hear from people, "Oh, I'm not creative." I said, "No."
that's the death. That's the death of
Yeah.
the soul.
Right. Right.
I mean, that's why people come, and I have people who they're down, they feel disconnected because they're not using their creativity towards something that brings them joy. They're in a job because that's just the economic reality, right? You have to have bananas and you have to have a shelter, and so in this world you have to have money to get that. So you take a job, but it's soul crushing.
Yeah, which is too bad, isn't it?
Yeah, but you have to find, you can take that soul crushing job if you have an outlet for your, what I would call creativity. And
Yes.
when that is shut down, that's when I think life gets very, very, very depressing and meaningless. It loses me. I think we're all looking for purpose.
That's
You
Viktor
know,
Frankl right there.
on there's the biological level where it's just survival. In the material world, you survive. But we have more soul than that. I don't know what you call that, but we, for some reason, I think, want meaning to our lives. And yeah,
Agreed. So here's another Dahlia question. Does your mind operate poetically? Are your thoughts poetic?
I don't know what that means. I'm sorry, because I only know my own thoughts. I don't
Are
know
they
anyone
poetic
else's.
in nature?
Huh?
You know, iambic pentameter. Do you think
Oh, no, like that? No, no, no.
efficiency of words, let's say?
Oh, no, 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 no. I'm a not, no, 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 no. I try to, if anything, I want my patients to let loose and get rid of the editor that's governing what they say. I want them to really get in touch with the way their mind works and see how it just moves around and around. Yeah.
Look, I think what Dahlia was saying is since I'm a kid, I've always had, I've played games with names, right? Lieber, Bieber. You know,
Right.
I would do a lot of that, and I always make up a name for someone whom I knew, which was silly. And I do that with words. I love word playing. I think that's what Dahlia meant. Do you like word playing? Do you do that in your head a lot?
Well, the only thing that I'm not a great punter by any means, no. But what I used to do along the lines what I think you're talking about, there were, I'd be reading and words would like stand out amongst in the context. Certain words would just, and they would capture me.
Right.
And I had a book, and I would write those words down in the book, and I'd come up with long lists of words that I simply liked.
Do you remember any of them? Do you remember them?
Not right now, no. But I that's what I used to do, just collect words and try and use them.
You know what I did, Ronald? That I would also reverse words. So there's a supermarket here in Toronto called Loblaws, and I would flip it around, and backwards it's swall ball.
Oh, you're just reminding me. I just finished reading the Poisonwood Bible. You ever read that?
I haven't. No.
About King Solver. One of the characters. What is the name of when you? It's the same front and back, like radar.
Right.
There's a name for that. And one of the characters had a propensity of doing that, creating nonsensical phrases that read the same frontwards or backwards.
I forget what that's called. Okay,
Yeah.
Final Dahlia question, and you were alluding to it before. Where do the words come from? Do you need to work hard to think of them, or do they just come to you easily?
Well, I believe that you practice your craft, right? This is an Eliot thing, T.S. Eliot, so that when the inspiration hits, you don't struggle with the instrument. But to answer that, I think the words come to you. I'm a believer also because I'm meditate, and I see how my mind, and then I've been reading because I'm interested in science, that what comes as thoughts may just be, I don't know how to explain this, the tail end of some biological process, and this process and what comes as thoughts may have a root in the body somewhere.
Oh, I know. How so?
I don't know. I'm telling you, this is woolly-headed thinking. I haven't thought it through. But that's what they were implying, that it's a process that begins in the body and it gets transformed, and it comes to me as thoughts.
Have you thought about writing prose? Because you have a lot of very fascinating ideas.
I'm not a great prose writer.
You're not?
No.
What about that piece that you were working on with the plants, medicine?
What piece?
Oh, maybe I misunderstood it. Did you recently, were you involved in plants as medicine? I thought you wrote about it.
Oh no, I haven't written about. Oh well, I have written a paper, but it was quickly rejected.
Was it?
Yeah, I think at the time it was too. Because some psychoanalysts, the idea of using psychedelics,
yes,
in conjunction with psychoanalysis is just too radical.
I hear you.
Too radical.
So far. And I know this guy just shut it down because I know he didn't send it out, because I used to be an editor of a psychoanalytic journal. And normally you get a paper and you send it to reviewers, and that takes time. Yes.
And I sometimes I could tell from just glancing at the paper that it wasn't worthy. So I would just take the liberty of rejecting the paper. So I sent the paper out on psychoanalysis and psychedelics, and it was returned within 3 days. Ooh. So I know he just put the kibosh on it and saying no. And
what did that feel like?
Well, I said, I can't say what I thought, but I just thought this guy's too rigid. He's closed-minded, and he's not open to anything, and he's shutting it down without not even considering what I was saying, because he wasn't going to consider psychoanalysis and psychedelics. It just wasn't going to happen.
Which is too bad, because as far as I'm concerned, it's the future. It really is.
It is the future.
Oh yeah, 100%. I don't know how you feel about therapists, but I don't think they're doing a great job, and by and large, and they need something new. Well,
what I like about it is with psychedelics, because with psychoanalysis, you're working with what's not conscious, and it takes a long time to have sort of dredge it up, to use a
Yes.
metaphor.
Yes.
But when you do psychedelics,
You're there.
you are there.
Yeah, you're there.
It's
Yeah.
happening, and it's there. And then you can take that and you take it to psychoanalysis and you process it there. But that's one thing about I'm a firm believer you need to have a place to process the experience. I'm really concerned about people who go out and do it and then are on their own
Agreed.
without a place to, to talk to someone about it.
Yes. Yes. I mean, the most beautiful thing, the flip side of that is doing MDMA with someone whom you love, which I think was the initial reason the creation of MDA was predicated on that, can be such an incredibly beautiful thing.
It can.
It can, but doing it on your own is not near as great. So yes. Now the poetry book that we're speaking about today is called The Long Journey Out, which is an interesting title. And Ronald, this is Ronald's first poetry book, and he's written a poem called Between New Suffolk, The Look of Things, Exaltation and Passing, The Wanderer, Pardon Me, and the list goes on. And I've read a number of them, and I've quite enjoyed your poetry. And I wonder if you would give us the honor of hearing one of your poems read by yourself.
Okay, so give me a minute to get to the page. How many poems am I going to read?
I don't know, 2, 3.
2? Okay. Where is it? I'm getting to it.
While you're finding it, I want to tell my viewers and listeners that some of the greatest poets ever, and this is again from AI, was Homer in the 8th century BCE, Sappho, 630, 570 BCE, Rumi, 1207 to 1273 from Persia.
Oh, right.
John Milton, 1608, 1674 in England. Walt Whitman, 1819 to 1892, the USA of America. And Emily Dickinson, 1830, 1886.
Love them.
Yeah.
I love those two. Those two are the two, that's the fork in the road for poetry in American poetry.
That's what they say, yes.
Oh, so what I'm going to read is a poem called Still.
Okay.
It's short, so it's not long. Still. It was a moment, if that, among the many diversionary and picayune moments. So many in a gray day, where the bristled strokes of a neighbor sweeping the stone floor of the patio garden below, and a hacking cough disturbed a calm sought for and intermittently found that morning, balmy, unusual for October, more so for the gray, from which one expected a brisk slap, not the diaphanous embrace of air, which quickened an unease growing with the steady sweeping of a broom over stones. And I remember standing, looking down into the still green garden, transfixed by the stark fact of ivy and brick, eave and pigeon, and a man bent over a wooden broom, coughing, against the gray backdrop. And it had to have been just then, the moment between intimation and thought, that a drift of silence just out of reach, beyond the dome of sky from somewhere deep inside, somewhere ancestral, brushed me faintly like a breath, all my skin alert, apprehensive, and in my ear whispered what I am only now beginning to hear.
That's lovely. What does diaphanous mean?
Diaphanous. What does it mean? I have a sense of it. If I have my phone, you have your phone? Let's look it up.
Yeah, hold on a
It's
second.
very filmy. I think of like caterpillar threads, spider webs, may be diaphanous.
Who was the old man leaning over the broom, coughing?
It was something that really happened. Some guy might have been the super for all I know.
Yeah, because I'm always taken in literature and poetry by that moment when you see a stick by the side of the road and you just really see the stick.
Yeah, you see, yeah, right?
Yeah, exactly. Or
Yeah.
you see the man cleaning up, at an arena where I'll be tonight with my son when he plays hockey, and I'll watch the man and I'll think about who he is and the job that he does. You know what I always try to do, Ronald? I always try to do this, and I'm not saying out of to be arrogant or anything. I just think it's important. I'll always go up to these people and say, this place looks really clean. Like you've done a great job.
Wonderful.
I think it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah.
Diaphanous, characterized by such fineness of texture as to permit seeing through. You can see through it. Extremely delicate. Yeah. Yeah. It's a beautiful piece. Beautiful piece. Can you read it?
Oh, sure.
I like it.
This one's called Sentiment for an Old Notion. I just have to get to it. Here we go. This is called Sentiment for an Old Notion. Now, in it, there's a reference to Rousseau. You don't really need to know this, but this is the philosopher, the romantic philosopher.
Great writer.
Right. Sentiment for an Old Notion. Some things are better left unsaid. Rousseau noticed it in the non-biquara, in their adamant refusal to appoint proper names. And there is a superstition of birthday wishes that if one desires the wish fulfilled, one keeps it a secret. And always those who try to egg it out, the brats and the envious ones. Rousseau made children his accomplice too, by playing one child against another and through innuendo uncovered their names. The children were punished. He departed unscathed, the true culprit and intruder. I knew a woman who one night told me her story of anorexia, how she had wanted to die because everything was named and fixed in such a web that there wasn't a fresh corner to breathe in. Death seemed a fitting excision. I asked her why she didn't, and she, one autumn midnight, stood on a bridge poised to jump. The moon was notched in the valley, mist rose off the river, and there was the turbulence of white water reverberating below. In her periphery, hillsides masked in darkness, and she heard in her ears the faint call of birds far downstream. It was the moment she didn't leap, because amidst this presence, she was overtaken by a breathtaking beauty. That was how she phrased it, breathtaking. She did not recall in her mind that the river was the River Rose and the bridge the main link between Zurich and Bern, that beech and Norwegian spruce grew there, and that those birds were brown speckled mallards in migration. And she was going to say something more, but stopped because she was going to say something about love.
How did you go from Rousseau to her?
That's the mystery of the unconscious.
Okay.
That was not.
Okay, I got that. And in your therapeutic experience with your experience as a therapist, and I'm not asking for any private details, but I'm just wondering as you read that, clients who try to kill themselves, but they don't, like this woman, where do they put it as they move forward? Where do they put that thought as they move forward?
Well, this is very controversial. I have a particular view of suicide where it's the most radical form of self-attack. I'm attacking me. It's suicide or homicide. Where is this energy going? That's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at the self-attack is that what I'm really attacking are the representations of people in my mind. And I want to get at them, and I'm getting at them by killing myself.
Yes.
But, I can't speak for people who do, and this is all theory, it's not experience. Yeah, because I can't talk to someone who's successful at it. I can only talk to someone who hasn't been successful at it.
Right, which is a given. So, Ronald, let me ask something. As you move forward in life, God willing, you should live a long, healthy life. What's the big stuff like that you want to do before you leave this planet? What do you want to do? What do you want to accomplish?
Right now, in this moment, I want to live days like today.
Yeah, that's nice.
Before I came here, I'm sitting on the deck, and it's rustic now. Don't think it's anything fancy. It's real simple, and it's rustic. It's in the woods. I'm with my partner. It's a sunny day. It's easy going, and I'm reading a book, and I like the book, and I'm kind of happy. I don't know what to, I mean, days like this are just, I think the longer I've been living, the more I think relationships matter. I used to think, and maybe it's because I'm not as accomplished as I wish I had been, I want to be this, I want to do that. But I'm wondering, it's just simple human relationships, being in relating to another human being. And like those, I don't know, it comes to mind, just, regular, the average Joe who I used to have, I'm not contempt, but I had to be something, right? I have to be something. I have to accomplish. And that's what success is. But I think the guy who loves his wife, has a family, is content with it, has friends, and they come over and they drink a beer together.
Yeah.
And, he goes fishing. I think that's wonderful.
Well, what is she like, your partner?
Well, that's hard to encapsulate. She's very, I'll tell you what she is. She's very generous. She has a very generous soul and very caring. Very caring.
Do you care for her as she cares for you?
Well, by an objective measure, she probably does more caring behaviors than I do.
I'm saying, are you good at caring? Do you know how to do it?
I do know how to do it, and I'm learning how to do it better.
Yeah.
No, not better. More often.
Okay.
To walk through life, maybe caring isn't the word, maybe loving isn't the word, but something like that towards others, But it's hard. I live in the city, and it's sometimes hard to maintain that kind of attitude when you see what are termed mentally ill people or menacing people, on the subway, and I'm scared, or I see people are scared, or I see people not behaving in a civil fashion, not thinking of others. It's hard to maintain that outlook toward humans, a loving, caring.
But in the countryside, it's easier.
It's definitely easier.
Which is what you're saying. Yes.
Well, it is easier here. There's less there's something to density, people being in dense closeness.
And it's the wind. It's the wind through the leaves. It's walking barefoot, like Eric Fromm said, walking barefoot in the grass. I don't know. You just have that energy rushing through you from our existence. It's very beautiful. So listen, I've been asking over the last few months, I've been asking AI to write poetry about my guests. So I have an ode to Ronald Lieber. Would you like to hear it?
Oh, let me hear it.
Yeah. It goes like this. Like it's a poem for a poet, or once a poet. Across the globe, a poet's heart took flight. Ronald Lieber born where east meets west. In Japan's embrace beneath the sun's soft light, his mother's roots and father's stars coalesced. 14 homes by 14 years, a nomad's trail, from cherry blooms to military gates. Each move a verse, each place a fleeting tale, woven in the soul where memory awaits. In Costa Rica's arms, he sowed goodwill, a Peace Corps heart with hands to mend and heal. Then to New York's pulse, where dreams distill, a professor's pen, where words became his zeal. As SUNY's Hall, he taught the mind to sing, English carved in lines of grace and might. Yet deeper still, his analyst's ear would bring the heart's soft truth to bloom in quiet light. From Philly soil, he learnt the plant's old lore, a guide to roots that whispers life rebirth. At 70, his poet's voice would soar, the long journey out, his soul's own earth. Kirk is saying of wonders small and vast, of details caught where mind and world entwine. Each measured line is spell forever cast, to move the heart to trace the infinite's design. Ronald, poet, healer, wander of time. Your verses dance where cultures blend and sway. From Japan's soft dawn to New York's gritty rhyme, your life's long song lights up the human wave. That's it.
I want to say one thing before you leave nature. I'm a strong proponent of being among trees is a good thing.
It's a very good thing, isn't it?
I think you want, just go take a hike, take a walk through trees.
Listen, on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which is the high holiday of the New Year for the Jewish people, I've developed about 6 or 7 years ago this idea. It's called the Forest Shul, the Forest Synagogue, and I take about 35 or 40 people deep into the forest.
Yes.
And we sit, we talk, we meditate, we do some prayers, we sing, and at some point during the service, I asked everybody to stand up and to go find a tree for themselves and to hug it, to make that tree their own.
Trees they're alive.
Yeah, they are. And they talk, right?
And they're just a different form of life. They may not have a brain and they may not be conscious as we think of consciousness, but I don't know. From what I've been reading, trees are talking to one another.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
And they cry when they're cut down.
Yeah.
Ronald Lieber, I've really enjoyed my time with you. Thank you so much for being my guest.
Well, thank you for having me, man.
Oh, for sure. I find you such an interesting fellow. And you know what I found strange before was the only thing I found strange about this entire interview is when you said you didn't feel accomplished enough, because I don't know. I think you're very accomplished.
Well, I'm revealing myself at all times.
Yeah. No, I'm happy. You're
right. And I see it all the time. It's sad because it gets in the way.
It does.
It gets in the way.
I want to thank everybody for watching and for listening. And what I like to do at the end of my shows is just to remind you a piece of what we just discussed that you can take away for yourself from my guest. And I would say that probably the strongest piece of this interview is that Ronald seems like a very happy fellow. You do. You seem joyous. You seem like you've thought about a lot of stuff. You worked many things through, and you're sort of at the unplugged stage of life where you're not, you don't need the synthesizers of feelings anymore. It's like, it's the trees, it's the grass, it's the sitting, and reading a book and being loved and loved. It's a really nice place to arrive at. I'm 65. I just turned 65. And I find as I get older that life becomes simpler and more beautiful.
Yeah.
More beautiful.
I'm with you there.
Right. Anyways, I'd love to hang out with you at some point in the future.
Maybe we will.
Maybe we will. And I wish you
never
well,
know.
and I wish your family well. And once again, I thank you so much for being with
Yeah.
me. It was a wonderful interview.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. You have a
All right,
good
folks,
day.
as they say in Yiddish, sei gesund. Do you know any Yiddish, Ronald?
No.
It basically means go in good health.
Okay.
All right. And
Okay.
until we meet again, thanks for your time. Thank you.
Yeah.